lang pang lang pung lang pai, pung lang pang lang pai, pung lang pang lang pung lang pai, pung lang pang lang pai. Hello my viewers and subscribers. This is another edition of REGGAE News Network with Roger Grant. And today we bring you a special report, the Chinese connection and the growth of reggae. Today, China is an economic powerhouse, the second largest economy in the world. But it was not always so. In the late 18th century, China was an isolated backwater. Most of the prosperity was concentrated in the north, but in the rural south, biting poverty persisted. A few short years after slavery was abolished in the British colonies, many of the Negro slaves elected not to remain on the plantations. This necessitated a new workforce. What the British came up with was an enterprise called indentured servitude. This was where they made contracts to the East Indian colonial subjects and the Chinese Aka from the south to come to the Caribbean as indentured laborers. They were offered around $4 a month and in some cases free meals, and in other cases a return passage to their native country if they did not like the conditions. Of course, in the majority of cases, the British never honored these slave-like conditions, and most of them were forced to work for nothing. They were, for want of a better word, employed on the sugar plantations as cane cutters, and the Chinese as well as the East Indian cane cutters acquired the degrading nickname coolies. The work was backbreaking, and the succeeding generation of Caribbean Chinese hated the work. They deemed it a trap to keep them in poverty. Little by little, they started to move away from the plantations and became small shopkeepers. By 1931, the population of Chinese in Jamaica stood at around 6,000. The British government, seeing this as a threat to their dominance, curtailed Chinese migration. This, however, did not stop them from expanding into other activities, such as owners of dry goods wholesales, laundromats, bar, lounges, restaurants, and gambling establishments. In the 1950s, a few short years prior to Jamaican independence, the island started to develop a musical style of its own, which was dubbed ska. Previously, feeding on a diet of American music, now Jamaica had a music which they could claim as their own. This first explosion started with the rise of the sound systems, and two major players emerged in this era: Sir Coxsone Dodd and Arthur Duke Reid. Firstly, they needed discs to play on the sound systems, and this necessitated that they had to acquire the technology of making these discs. These were called specials from an acetate. With the explosion of the sound system and the proliferation of many different discotheques and hi-fi, there was a viable market for 45 RPMs, what we know as vinyl records. Now, this technology already existed in North America and Europe, and so an opportunity was there for those who could invest and take advantage of this new phenomenon. Many of the sound system owners of Negro descent also developed into record producers, setting up small labels and record studios to tap into the fountain of talent that was now emerging in Jamaica. Following on the lead of Jamaicans of Middle Eastern descent who had already started to set up studios and dub cutting facilities, the Chinese, with a penchant for copying what others were doing successfully, did not miss a beat. So began the Chinese entrepreneurial involvement in the Jamaican music business. Key figures came to the forefront, and Reggae News Network will spotlight the main players in part 2.